Hey, it's really good to have you here tonight. You can just settle in, let the blankets fall wherever they want, and let your body know it doesn't have to hold anything up anymore. We've got plenty of time. There's no rush. I'm right here with you, like we're sharing the same quiet room, the same soft darkness, the same slow rhythm of breathing. You know, there's something comforting about these late hours when the world tips into stillness and even the air feels like it's drifting towards sleep. So let's make tonight easy. Let's let everything soften, and we'll wander gently into a story from old Japan in just a little bit. A calm, flowing tale about the Kappa. Not the scary version people sometimes mention, but the older, gentler, riverside whisper of the legend, the one that lives in warm summer nights and slow-moving water. But before we go there, let's take a moment for you. Just let your shoulders drop, even a tiny bit. Feel how they settle when they realize they're allowed to rest. You don't have to sit tall or hold yourself together. You're safe. You're comfortable. You're surrounded by quiet. And maybe take a breath that's just a little deeper than the one before. Not forced, just enough to feel the cool air move in and the warm air drift out. Yeah, just like that. You might notice, as you breathe, that your jaw loosens on its own, or your eyelids get a little heavier. If your mind tries to wander somewhere stressful, just nudge it back here, to the softness, to the feeling of lying down, hearing a calm voice, and not needing to do anything else at all. Tonight, I want you to imagine, only if it feels good, that you're somewhere near water. Not a cold, rushing river. Nothing dramatic. Just a quiet place. Maybe a shallow bend of a stream, or a small pond with reeds leaning over the edges. A place where the water moves so slowly you can't tell if it's drifting, or simply breathing with you. Picture the cool night air brushing over your skin, the kind that smells faintly of wet stone and summer plants. Imagine little sounds. A frog in the distance, a soft plink of water against a rock, maybe even the rustle of long grass. Those gentle sounds that somehow make you feel more, not less. Relaxed, and you don't have to see it sharply. It's okay if the image is blurry, like a dream that's only just beginning. Your mind can fill in the rest as we drift along. Let your breath settle into a slow, natural rhythm. Not too deep, just easy, like you're rocking yourself quietly into rest. If there's any tightness in your back or your neck, just let it know it can melt a little. Your body doesn't need to prepare for anything. We're only resting, only listening. You might even let your arms sink a little heavier into the bed. Feel the mattress holding you up. Your hands, your knees, your feet, all of them getting heavier, warmer, softer. Good. You're doing beautifully. And remember, you're allowed to drift in and out of the story. You don't have to catch every detail. Sleep will take what it wants. I'll keep telling the tale in a slow, steady voice, like brushing long strokes of calm across the edge of your thoughts. Before we move into the legend itself, let's give your mind one more chance to settle. Maybe try this. As you breathe in, imagine cool, fresh night air sliding into your lungs. And as you breathe out, imagine letting go of just one tiny worry. Nothing dramatic, maybe something small, like an unfinished task or a lingering thought. Just let one of them drift away. like a leaf floating downstream. If that feels good, you can do it again. If not, just breathe normally. There's no right way here. We're just easing your body into a place where sleep feels natural, like a tide coming in. You might even feel a soft warmth around your chest and stomach, that comfortable heaviness that shows up when you're close to drifting. Let it spread, slowly, across your ribs, your shoulders, down through your hips and legs. There's nowhere you need to go, nothing you need to adjust. Just let that warmth rest with you. And as your muscles loosen, your thoughts might begin to slow down too. Maybe they drift like little boats on still water, gentle and directionless. No pressure on them. No need to think clearly. Just a soft meandering. You're not alone here. I'm right beside you, telling this in the quietest way. Like if we speak too loudly, we might disturb the fireflies near the water's edge. And that image, those faint flickers of warm light in the dark, they fit so well with tonight's story. A story that moves at a slow, river-like pace. Not frightening, not strange, just ancient, thoughtful and calm. The Kappa in old tales from Japan isn't only a trickster or a warning to children. There's a softer side to the legend, a quieter one. There are stories where the Kappa becomes a companion of sorts, a curious little river spirit, watching humans from the shade of lotus leaves, learning our habits, sometimes even helping fishermen or farmers when the seasons changed. And tonight, that's the version we'll wander into. The calm, wistful one, the one that lives where moonlight touches the water. But we'll ease into it slowly. Your breath is steady now. Your body's sinking deeper into the bed, and the night around us feels settled, as if the world is dimming the lights for you. Let that softness wrap you up. In a moment, we'll begin the legend. We'll step together onto an old stone path in a quiet village, somewhere in Japan, a place filled with the sound of streams and bamboo rustling. But right now, you don't need to picture anything clearly. Just let the anticipation sit lightly, like a hand resting over yours. Take one more unhurried breath. Let your exhale fade all the way out, until your body feels a little heavier again. And if your eyes aren't closed yet, they might start fluttering. That gentle, half-dreamy motion that means you're drifting. Good. You're ready. We'll wander slowly into the story soon, but there's no rush, because the river in this tale, it's patient. It waits, just like sleep waits for you. When you're comfortable, when your breath is soft and your mind feels like it's swaying in the dark, we'll start the first half of the legend. For now, just stay here with me, resting, unwinding, letting the night open around you. All right, now that you're comfortable, why don't we step together into the first part of this story, a gentle tale from old Japan, told the way elders might whisper it on warm nights, slowly, like water drifting through reeds. Let the world around you fade a little, and picture, only if it feels natural, a small village nestled along a quiet river valley, a place locals once called Kawamura. Nothing fancy, just a scattering of wooden homes, soft lantern light glowing through paper walls, and a river moving so slowly beside them that the surface often held the sky like a mirror. In this village lived a young boy named Sayo, a calm, thoughtful child. The kind who would pause just to watch dragonflies hover, or listen to the wind sliding through bamboo. He wasn't loud. He didn't chase excitement. He simply had a gentle curiosity that made him wander along the riverbanks day after day. And that river, the Kawagawa, was the heart of the village. It fed rice fields, watered gardens, and kept everyone cool on long, humid evenings. People respected it. They bowed toward it, and they often whispered stories about the beings said to live within its currents. Among those beings, the most mysterious, the one children spoke of with both wonder and caution, was the Kappa, but not the frightening creature some tales describe. No claws flashing, no danger lurking, just a small river spirit, curious, slightly mischievous, and strangely shy, like a wild animal unsure whether to approach a human hand extended in kindness. This softer Kappa is the one our story follows. And tonight, as we lie here side by side in this quiet darkness, we'll wander with Sayo as he first meets the creature whose legend still ripples across Japan. One warm evening, when the sky had turned a faded peach color, Sayo wandered down toward the river after finishing chores. He carried a small woven basket, the kind used to collect smooth stones or tiny drifting reeds. He liked to sit beside the water, dip his feet in, and just breathe, letting the coolness wrap around his ankles. The river was calm that night, so calm that the surface barely trembled even when a fish rose for insects. And as Sayo settled down on his usual rock, he felt something shift in the air. Quiet awareness, like being watched, but not in a threatening way. More like when a shy animal studies you from behind a branch. He didn't look around at first. He just waited, listening to the soft trickle of water over stones, the faint hum of evening, and the warm breeze brushing the back of his neck. Then he heard it, a tiny splash, not big enough to be a fish, not close enough to be someone else from the village, just a small sound, as if something or someone had peeked up from the water, then ducked back in. Sayo smiled to himself. He wasn't frightened. He'd grown up hearing river stories his whole life, and he always believed the river spirits were gentle. He whispered softly toward the water, "Hello, I'm not here to bother you." Another splash, closer this time, then silence, and then, gradually, very gradually, a small head rose from the surface. Not quite human, not quite animal, rounded at the top, with a shallow dish-shaped dip that held a little pool of water, the mark of a Kappa. The creature's eyes were large, dark, and full of curiosity, almost like a child peeking from behind a doorway. Its skin shimmered a pale green under the fading sunlight, smooth, gentle-looking, not rough or sharp. For a long moment, Sayo and the Kappa just watched each other. No fear, only curiosity drifting back and forth like tiny ripples. Sayo whispered again, even softer, "Are you all right? You can come closer if you want." The Kappa blinked slowly, as if deciding whether to trust him. It lifted one small hand above the water, webbed fingers glistening, then placed that hand gently on the nearest stone, pulling itself a little higher. Sayo noticed how careful it was, how every movement seemed thoughtful, as though it didn't want to startle him, or maybe it didn't want to spill the water held in the dish atop its head. That sacred water, the source of the Kappa's life and strength, a detail passed down through generations of stories. But in this moment, nothing about the creature felt powerful or threatening. It simply looked curious, maybe even lonely. Sayo slowly dipped his hand into the river, letting the current slide through his fingers. Then he lifted his hand out, palming a small offering of cool water. He held it, close to the creature, not touching, just showing. "Look, I understand you." The Kappa tilted its head, and for the first time, a tiny sound slipped from its throat, a soft chirring noise, almost like a baby duck. And whether it meant gratitude or simple recognition, Sayo felt warmth bloom in his chest. The Kappa leaned forward, reached out, and very gently touched its fingertips to Sayo's wrist. A feather-light contact, tentative, like the first step towards something new. The river whispered around them. The sky deepened, and the lanterns in Kawamura began flickering to life behind the trees. But neither of them moved. It was the beginning, though neither understood it yet, of a quiet friendship between boy and spirit. From that evening on, Sayo visited the river every day, and the Kappa, shy at first, would eventually rise from the water whenever it sensed him nearby, sometimes splashing lightly, sometimes peeking up from behind stones, and slowly, gradually, it grew brave enough to come close without hesitation. Sayo learned to recognize the tiny expressions the creature made, the way its eyes softened when it was calm, the way its shoulders lifted slightly when it found something amusing, like when dragonflies landed on its head and skated around the dish of water. He started bringing small gifts, smooth pebbles, bits of cucumber, little bundles of river grass tied with string. And the Kappa would accept each offering with a shy lowering of its head. The two of them never spoke in words, not really, though Sayo often talked in a gentle voice, telling the creature about his day, about the chores he liked and the ones he didn't, about the way he wished to travel, someday, to see the mountains beyond the valley, or the sea he'd only heard described in stories. The Kappa listened, eyes soft, head tilted slightly to one side, as if truly absorbing every detail. And sometimes, when Sayo grew quiet, the Kappa would slip beneath the surface, then pop up again with some small treasure, a floating lotus petal, a tiny shell carried upriver by storms, or a single bright feather, little tokens that said, "I hear you too." Evenings passed this way, one after another, soft, simple, peaceful. But as the weeks went by, Sayo began noticing small changes in the river. Nothing alarming, just subtle shifts. For instance, the water felt slightly cooler than usual even on warm days, or the currents moved unpredictably, swirling into shapes Sayo couldn't understand. Like the river was murmuring something, trying to express a feeling too old to translate. The elders in Kawamura sometimes spoke of such signs. They said that rivers, just like people, had moods, and when a river grew restless, it often meant a season change was coming, or a long-forgotten story was stirring beneath the surface. Sayo shared these thoughts with the Kappa one evening, sitting on the flat stone where they always met. The sky was deep blue, lined with early stars, and the scent of night jasmine drifted softly through the air. "The river feels different lately," he whispered. "You can sense it too, right?" The Kappa watched him, then dipped its hand into the water, creating a slow circle, as if saying, "Yes, it is shifting." But neither of them felt afraid, only curious, like travelers sensing the beginning of a quiet journey. One night, as the moon rose full and pale over the valley. Sayo felt an urge to visit the river later than usual, long after the rest of the village had dimmed its lanterns. He slipped outside, barefoot, his steps soft over the warm wooden floor, and walked beneath the moonlit bamboo. When he reached the riverbank, he noticed something unusual. The Kappa was already there, not in the water, but sitting on a stone, waiting. The creature's posture seemed different tonight, not anxious, not playful, but almost contemplative, like it held a secret it wasn't sure how to share. Sayo approached slowly, lowering himself onto the stone beside it, feeling the warmth of the Kappa's presence, a soft pulse of companionship. For a long moment, they simply sat there, breathing the same cool night air, listening to the river drift by. And then, the Kappa reached out, placing one hand gently on Sayo's chest, right over his heart. It wasn't a warning. It wasn't a fear. It felt more like a question, a quiet invitation, or maybe a promise. Sayo placed his hand over the Kappa's in return, softly, letting their breaths fall into the same slow rhythm. And the river, almost as if it sensed the connection, glimmered under the moonlight, casting silver ripples across the valley. That was the moment, without either of them speaking, when Sayo realized the river spirit wanted to show him something, a part of the legend deeper than the surface stories, something hidden beneath the gentle calm they'd shared so far. Not dangerous, not frightening, just ancient and waiting. The air trembled slightly, a barely there shift, and Sayo felt the first hints of a journey beginning, one that would take him deeper into the heart of the river legend, into the world of the Kappa, and into a quiet understanding that would change both of them forever. And that is where the first half of our tale settles for now, drifting like a leaf on calm water, holding its breath, waiting for the currents to guide us deeper. The night deepened around Sayo and the Kappa, and for a little while, they just stayed there, side by side, with nothing but the quiet river moving at its slow silver pace beneath the moon. Sayo could feel, somehow, that the moment mattered, even if he didn't yet know why. The Kappa's hand over his heart felt warm, gentle, steady, like it was reminding him that he wasn't alone. Not in the village, not in this world of river spirits, not even within his own wandering thoughts. The air held a kind of expectancy, soft, patient, like the river itself was waiting for him to breathe, to soften, to open. And then, with a small shift of its body, the Kappa slipped slowly into the water, turned back, and offered its hand to Sayo, an invitation. Not urgent, not demanding, just a quiet, "Would you come with me?" Sayo hesitated only long enough to breathe once, and then he nodded, the way one might nod to a trusted friend, someone who had met him in silence day after day. He stepped carefully into the water, the coolness wrapping around his ankles, then his shins, and the Kappa guided him gently along the shallows, away from the usual path we walked every day, toward a part of the river he had never visited. The moonlight shimmered across the surface, pulling soft lines of light along their path, and every once in a while, a fish drifted beneath them, its scales glinting like tiny drifting stars. Sayo felt calm, strangely calm, as if he were moving deeper into a dream that welcomed him. that recognized him, that held no danger at all. Eventually, they reached a place where the river widened, forming a small inlet shielded by tall reeds and broad lotus leaves. The water here was unusually still, mirror-like, so clear that Sayo could see the pale stones lining the riverbed, soft shapes swaying under faint currents. The Kappa lifted its hand, motioning for him to wait, and then it dove beneath the surface. Sayo knelt at the water's edge, waiting, listening to the heartbeat of the river. He didn't feel scared, not even curious in a sharp way, just quietly open, as if trusting that whatever came next belonged to him in some gentle, natural way. Moments passed, slow, unhurried. Then the Kappa rose again, holding something small in its hands, a round stone, smooth and pale, with a faint spiral carved into the surface, something like a curl of mist, or the inside of a seashell. It offered the stone to Sayo, eyes lowered slightly, an expression almost ceremonial, almost sacred. Sayo took the stone carefully, feeling its surprising warmth, as if the river had been storing a memory inside it. "What is this?" he whispered, even though he knew the Kappa could not answer in words. But the creature lifted one hand, touched the dish of water atop its head, then touched the stone, and then touched Sayo's chest. Slow, deliberate motions, like gestures passed down through centuries. And Sayo understood, not through logic, not through language, but simply through the quiet clarity that often comes in dreams. This was a river memory, a story recorded long before he was born, a sign that the river had accepted him, trusted him, welcomed him into its gentle, secret world. He held the stone close, felt it pulse faintly with warmth, and in that moment, he sensed something deeper in the Kappa too, a softness, a longing, maybe even gratitude. The Kappa moved closer, rested its forehead gently against his shoulder, and Sayo felt their breaths sink again. That same calm rhythm from earlier in the night, the rhythm that told him their bond had grown roots. As the days passed, Sayo visited the inlet more often, and with each visit, the Kappa shared a little more of its world. Sometimes it led him to small clusters of freshwater pearls, hidden beneath reeds, each shimmering with soft moon color. Sometimes it showed him patterns the river made at sunrise, circles within circles, like the river was speaking in shapes rather than words. Once, it even guided Sayo to a fallen tree submerged under the surface, its hollow trunk filled with tiny glowing moss, soft green lights drifting like living lanterns. Sayo laughed in wonder, and the Kappa chirred softly in response, a sound that had grown familiar, comforting, almost affectionate. The friendship between them deepened, quietly, with no grand gestures, just shared silence, shared curiosity, shared trust. But then, as the summer neared its end, Sayo noticed the Kappa beginning to change, not in appearance, but in mood. It grew quieter, more contemplative, often staring downstream for long stretches, as if waiting for something. When Sayo tried to ask, the Kappa would simply lower its head, touch the boy's hand, and gaze once more toward the distant bend in the river, the place where the Kawagawa flowed into deeper, wider waters. One evening, the air already tinged with the scent of early autumn, Sayo arrived at the inlet to find the Kappa sitting on the central stone, its reflection long and still in the fading light. He approached slowly, feeling a weight in the air, a soft ache, the kind that comes before partings we don't want to accept. The Kappa looked up at him, eyes round and full of a tenderness Sayo had not seen before. Then it touched the dish atop its head, slowly lowered its body, and bowed to him. A deep bow, the kind that meant farewell. Sayo felt something tighten in his chest. He shook his head a little. "Are you leaving?" he whispered, his voice trembling just slightly. The Kappa didn't speak, but it reached out, took Sayo's hand, and placed it once again over his own heart, just like that first night when the journey began. Then it touched the spiral stone, still warm from where Sayo always kept it close, and it churred, a low, soft sound, filled with meaning he couldn't translate, but could feel deeply. The river was calling it downstream, toward a gathering of spirits, toward the seasonal shift that awaited river beings everywhere. A quiet migration, part of the river's ancient cycle. It wasn't a tragedy, not a loss, just a change, one that came gently, the way leaves begin to fall long before you notice the first one touch the ground. Sayo knelt, wrapped his arms around the creature, felt its cool skin, its small trembling breaths, and whispered, "Thank you for everything." The Kappa pressed its forehead to his cheek, just for a moment. A soft, watery goodbye, then slipped into the river, gliding without hurry. Looking back only once, Sayo stayed on the bank long after it disappeared, holding the spiral stone, letting the river breeze brush against his face, knowing, deep down, that the friendship hadn't ended. Not really. It lived in the river, in the stone, and in the quiet corners of his heart. Years later, villagers would speak of a boy who grew up gentle and wise, someone who always understood the river's moods, who always knew when to repair the small wooden bridges, when the rains would come, when the fish would gather. They said he had a strange sense for it, as if the river whispered to him, as if he'd learned its language from someone special. And whenever children asked him about the Kappa, he would smile softly, like someone remembering a friend met long ago. And he would say, "The river is full of stories, but the kindest ones are the quietest." Then he would touch the spiral stone he always carried, still warm, still gently pulsing, and he would gaze downstream, just for a moment, as if greeting someone unseen. Across Japan, different regions told softer versions of the Kappa's tale, stories where the spirit wasn't a trickster, but a helper, a guide, a shy river child. In some areas, they said a Kappa would assist farmers by clearing water channels, moving stones throughout the night so the morning irrigation flowed smoothly. In others, people believed that leaving cucumbers by the river's edge brought blessings, like early harvests, calm weather, or protection for traveling fishermen. And there were tales told in the mountains near Nara and in the quiet valleys of Tohoku of children who befriended gentle Kappa, just as Sayo had, and who grew up with a lifelong sense of calm around water, as though part of the river lived inside them too. None of these stories spoke of fear or danger, only companionship, curiosity, and the soft connections between humans and the peaceful spirits that share their world. These versions survived because they carried something people needed, a reminder that nature, even in its mystery, can be kind, can be gentle, can be a companion, just like the Kappa was for Sayo. And so, the story drifts, slowly, toward its resting place for tonight, leaving you with the soft echo of river water and the feeling of an old friendship that still ripples quietly across time. You know, now that we've wandered together through the quiet bends of that old legend, I just want to stay here with you a little longer, not to tell another part of the story, but just to let my own thoughts drift, right beside yours. There's something soft in the air after a tale like this, a kind of gentle stillness, like the world has taken a slow breath in and hasn't quite let it out yet. And lying here, next to you, I can feel that stillness settling between us, almost like a blanket, warm in some places, cool in others, but comforting all the way through. I keep thinking about Sayo and that quiet, steady way he connected with the Kappa. Nothing forced, nothing dramatic, just two beings, sharing a riverbank, letting trust grow in its own slow rhythm. It makes me think about how rare that kind of connection feels sometimes in our world, where voices get loud, schedules fill up, and people rush without meaning to. But in Kawamura, with the soft light, the bamboo rustling, the river drifting without hurry, there was room, space, breathing space, for something gentle to appear. And I guess, when I close my eyes with you here, I can almost sense that river too, not as a place far away, but as a feeling, right under the surface of our own breathing. Just that quiet flow, moving slowly, patiently, never asking for anything. It's strange how stories do that, how they sit with us long after we hear the last words, how they leave their own rhythms in the mind, little echoes that help us loosen the parts of ourselves we hold too tightly. I think what touches me most about Sayo's story is how gentle the Kappa was, and how gentle Sayo was in return. There's something so profoundly human about wanting to understand something different from yourself, and something so profoundly comforting about being understood back, even by a river spirit, even by a being who never spoke a single word. You don't always need words. Sometimes a shared silence, a shared breath, a shared moment of stillness says more than anything else could. And as I'm lying here, I can feel that with you too, this soft, unhurried closeness, even though we're only connected through a voice, a feeling, and the gentle dark of this moment. It reminds me that the best parts of life often aren't loud, aren't impressive, aren't filled with action. They're simple, quiet, like placing a hand over someone's heart, or watching a moonlit river ripple with secrets too old to be frightening. I think about the ending too, when the Kappa had to leave, and how Sayo understood, not with logic, but with something deeper, a kind of acceptance that didn't break him, but softened him. Goodbyes like that, they always make the chest ache a little, even when they're gentle, even when they're natural. But in the story, that ache felt warm, like it made more space inside him. Space where memory and gratitude could sit together without tension. And maybe, in some quiet way, Sayo carried the river with him ever after, not literally, but in his temperament, his patience, the softness he brought into the world around him. I think that's what legends do. They don't always give us lessons, but they give us shapes, patterns, ways to imagine being human a little differently. When I think about the Kappa now, I don't picture a creature at all. I picture a feeling, a coolness in the air beside water, a shy curiosity, a small presence that means no harm, just wants to understand, just wants to be understood. And I wonder, quietly, how often we walk past that feeling in our own lives, when we move too quickly, or forget to look up from the path, or forget that even small, strange things can be gentle companions if we give them space. Sometimes I think we all have our own river spirit, not literally, of course, but some quiet part of ourselves that waits beneath the surface, wanting attention, wanting connection, wanting to offer us something. If only we'd wade into the water a little and listen. And lying here next to you, thinking these soft drifting thoughts, I'm reminded how much we all need moments like this. Moments where nothing is being asked of us, where the world shrinks down to a quiet breath, a warm blanket, a steady heartbeat somewhere close by. You know, it feels really natural talking to you like this, letting the story blend into my own reflections, like two slowly merging streams, and feeling the weight of the day loosen, bit by bit, as if it's dissolving into the water. There's something comforting about the idea that even river spirits feel change, feel pull, feel seasons shifting inside them. It makes the changes in our own lives feel less lonely, less abrupt, more like we're part of a larger rhythm, one that's existed long before us and will continue long after. I love the thought that Sayo didn't fight that rhythm, that he didn't cling. He loved quietly and let go quietly, without losing anything of what mattered. I guess that's the part that lingers in me the most, that gentle kind of love, one that doesn't try to hold, doesn't try to change, just appreciates and lets things flow, kind of like how we're lying here now, sharing this soft moment, not rushing toward the end of it, not gripping it, just letting it unfold, breath by breath. I think if I stood by the Kappa myself, maybe on a late night like this, with the moon reflected on the water and the reeds rustling like old paper, I'd probably feel the presence of a Kappa too, not as a creature rising from the water, but as a gentleness, a quiet intention, a reminder that the world is softer than it seems when you slow down enough to feel it. And maybe that's the real heart of these old Japanese river legends. Not fear, not caution, but the encouragement to pause, to look closely, to notice the subtle life inside the water and inside ourselves. Stories like this make me want to breathe slower, move more gently, speak in a softer voice, the way I'm speaking to you now, because somehow it feels like the only voice that fits. Sometimes I imagine Sayo as an old man, sitting by the same river, watching the water drift past his feet, and smiling at memories only he can see. That quiet smile people carry when something once touched them deeply, so deeply that the memory never leaves. Maybe he'd still feel the echo of the Kappa beside him, like a small weight of cool air on his shoulder, or the faintest ripple breaking the reflection of the sky. And maybe the river itself, after all those years, would still remember him too, still hold his story in its slow-moving currents, letting it drift softly from season to season. I like that thought. It makes the world feel gentler, larger, more connected. There's a sweetness in knowing that something doesn't have to last forever to matter, that a moment, or a friendship, or a quiet encounter by the water can stay inside us long after it ends, carried the way Sayo carried his spiral stone, warm, pulsing, a reminder that he had once been seen and once had seen something extraordinary in return. And maybe, in the hush of this moment, as you lie here listening, you can feel that same warmth somewhere inside you, the warmth that says, you've been part of something gentle tonight, something connected, something that will stay with you, even as sleep begins to drift in. I can feel your breath settling, smoothing out into that soft nighttime rhythm, and it makes me want to keep speaking in this low, slow tone. Just enough to keep you company, but not enough to hold you awake. Because this part, these reflections, they're really just little ripples spreading out from the story, and from you, and from the quiet between us. And I want you to know, I'm grateful to be here in this hush with you, letting our thoughts drift like lanterns floating along a river, glowing softly, moving slowly, eventually fading into the distance. When you're ready, I'll take you into part 5, where we'll explore the gentle history and culture behind the Kappa, not in a textbook way, but in the same soft voice, like we're sharing warm tea at midnight. You know, now that we've wandered through the story and drifted through those soft reflections together, I keep thinking about how these old river legends, especially the ones about the Kappa, came to be in the first place. And maybe tonight, lying here with the air so still around us, feels like the perfect moment to talk about that gentle history, not like a lecture, just like two people sharing whispers in the dark. When you hear the name Kappa, it's easy to imagine something wild or strange, because over time, different regions in Japan added their own colors to the legend, some bright, some shadowed. But at the heart of it, the earliest Kappa tales were surprisingly calm, rooted in the simple, everyday relationship people had with water. Japan has always been a land shaped by rivers, narrow valleys, mountains that catch the rain, streams running between rice terraces. And when life depends so deeply on water, it feels natural that people would imagine spirits living inside it, not as enemies, but as neighbors. Long ago, villagers would bow toward rivers before taking water, not out of fear, but respect, a way of saying, "Thank you, we'll take only what we need." And somewhere in that quiet gratitude, the idea of the Kappa began to form, a being that wasn't above humans or below them, just another presence in the world, curious, shy, sometimes playful, sometimes teaching people gentle caution, like reminding children not to wander too deep into the currents. It's interesting, because the Kappa wasn't always described the same way. In some places, they were tiny, no bigger than a toddler. In others, they looked almost like small river children, with smooth green skin and wide eyes. And in many older stories, they weren't frightening at all, just odd little companions who lived alongside the flow of water, appearing only when they felt safe. The feature that stayed constant, though, was the water held on top of their heads, that little dish, like a bowl carved into their skulls, carrying water from their home river. People believed that as long as that water stayed full, the Kappa could live among humans, move with grace, carry its spirit strength. But if the water spilled, the Kappa would weaken, sometimes even collapse gently onto the ground. It wasn't meant as a weakness, more like a reminder that even a spirit depends on its home, that everything strong still has something tender at its core. And I think that tenderness is why so many of the peaceful Kappa stories survived. Villagers often told their children, if you meet a Kappa, offer it cucumber, bow to it, show respect, and it will bow back. That bow was important because when a Kappa bowed, the water on its head might spill, leaving it vulnerable. So the act of bowing meant trust, a willingness to meet humans halfway. I love that image. Two beings bowing to each other beside a quiet river, each showing their soft underbelly, each hoping to be met with kindness. It tells you something deep about the culture these stories grew out of. A culture where humility and respect were woven into everyday life, where gestures spoke louder than words, and where even a legendary spirit was expected to practice politeness. When people think of myths, they often imagine gods or monsters, huge, frightening stories. But the Kappa, in many regions, was almost like a neighbor, someone you might see by chance while washing vegetables, or someone who might borrow water from your well and leave a small gift in return. Some farmers believed Kappa helped irrigate fields, moving pebbles and mud during the night, making way for the water to flow evenly. And fishermen would whisper that Kappa guided schools of fish, turning them toward nets during difficult seasons. Not because they were obligated, but because the river itself wanted balance, and the Kappa was part of that balance. There were temples too, small shrines tucked along river paths, where travelers left cucumbers or carved wooden charms, hoping the Kappa would protect them from slipping on wet stones, or keep their boats steady during unexpected currents. All of this painted a world where humans and nature weren't separated, where people listened to rivers, trusted their moods, learned from their patterns. And honestly, as I'm lying here with you, speaking softly in this darkened room, it's easy to imagine how comforting that way of seeing the world must have been. That sense that the river wasn't an empty place, but a companion watching over you. Even today, you can find echoes of the Kappa almost everywhere in Japan. Not in fearsome forms, but in friendly little drawings, mascots for towns, characters in folktale books, small statues near bridges, charming and harmless, reminding people of the connection between humans and water. Children are still told, gently, don't play too close to deep water. The Kappa might pull you in. But nowadays, that warning doesn't carry fear. It carries care, the way a parent warns out of love, using the old story as a cushion. And in summer festivals, you might see paper lanterns shaped like Kappa, floating down rivers, glowing softly, like spirits traveling peacefully through the night, carrying wishes on thin paper tied with twine. People smile when they see them, because the Kappa isn't a monster anymore. It's a symbol of rivers, of seasons, of the old stories that remind everyone where they come from. It's beautiful when you think about it. How a myth survives not by staying big and dramatic, but by staying gentle, by making people feel something soft, like nostalgia or curiosity, or the simple comfort of knowing the world once felt smaller, simpler, more magical. Even the idea of offering cucumber to a riverbank still appears in little traditions here and there, almost playfully. Families leave a slice or two during the Obon season, as if greeting an old friend, or making sure the spirits passing through have something refreshing to enjoy. It's the sweetness of the gesture that matters, not the belief itself. And I think that sweetness connects back to why the Kappa legend still feels calming. Why telling it, even slowly like this, in the dark, has such a gentle pull on the heart. Because the myth reminds us, very quietly, that the world is full of unseen relationships, that nature listens, that water remembers, that even things we can't quite explain can become companions if we meet them with softness. The version of the legend you and I shared these past few parts, the peaceful one, with Sayo and the shy river spirit, fits into a long, quiet lineage of stories told in small homes, on warm nights when the wind carried the scent of rice fields. Stories passed from grandparents to grandchildren, not to frighten them, but to lull them, to connect them to the flowing world around them. And as we lie here together, with your breath slow, your body sinking deeper into the comfort beneath you, I'm reminded that legends aren't really about the past. They're about moments like this, moments where we feel the world soften, where we let old stories hold us for a while, where river spirits and young boys and quiet goodbyes become a language for rest. When I speak about the Kappa now, I don't see fear, I don't see warnings, I see a gentle invitation. Slow down, look closely, let yourself drift with the water. Trust the softness in the world. It's the same invitation I want to offer you with each slow breath, each drifting thought, each tiny moment where your eyelids grow heavier. And if one day you ever find yourself near a quiet river at dusk, with the light fading into that deep blue softness, you might remember this story and feel something warm in your chest, like the river is greeting you, like an old friend saying, "Welcome back." And maybe, just maybe, you'll feel the presence of a small spirit nearby, not seen, not heard, just sensed, like a cool touch of air or a tiny ripple breaking the stillness. Not to frighten you, never that, but to remind you that gentleness is everywhere, even in the places we forget to look. You've come such a long way with me tonight, through the quiet paths of old Japan, along the soft river curves, into the gentle company of Sayo and that shy little Kappa. And now, here we are, at the very end, just lying together in the hush of this moment, letting the story fade into something warm and peaceful inside you. I want you to let your whole body relax now, even more than before. Let your shoulders sink a little deeper. Let your jaw grow loose. Let your breath drift in the slowest, softest rhythm it naturally finds. You don't have to hold anything, not a thought, not a feeling, not even the story we shared. Just let it all float, like lotus petals on water. You're safe here, you're warm, and you're allowed to rest completely, without thinking, without trying, just easing into the kind of stillness where sleep comes in its own, quietly, kindly, the way the river welcomed Sayo, the way the Kappa bowed with trust. If your eyes haven't closed yet, they might start slipping shut now, heavier, slower, like little curtains drawn by the night itself. And as they do, you can imagine the river from our story, its surface calm, silver under the moon, never rushing, never pushing, just flowing. Let yourself drift with it. Feel the softness of the current beneath you. Feel the cool night air brushing over your skin. Feel the world letting go of its edges until everything becomes one smooth, quiet, gentle feeling. I'm right here, my voice staying low and steady, like the soft hum of water against stones. And you can rest, knowing there is nothing else you need to do, nothing to prepare, nothing to finish. Only this moment, only this breath, only this warmth. You've earned your rest. Your body knows it. Your mind knows it. And sleep is already moving toward you, slow and patient, like a friend walking the last few steps to meet you by the riverbank. Just let it come. Let it wrap around you. Let it carry you gently into the dream world, where rivers glow under moonlight, where spirits are kind, where everything is soft, and where you are held. Good night, my friend. Sleep well. Sleep deeply. Let the world grow quiet around you until morning finds you rested and peaceful, the way water settles after a long, warm day.